Yeah, but I think what we can do is kind of get like, go with the last night or two, get couches lounge.
I came from Northwest Arkansas. I worked at Sheriff's Office. I went
What's going to happen next?
We have a major in the Sheriff's Office. He did not want it. The Sheriff said it's going to happen. 3 times I set a computer up on his desk.
Call the meeting to order. Those who care to, please stand for an opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Cameron, if you would.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for all you do for us. And Lord, I just pray, God, for the continued growth and development of this city, and just wisdom and direction as we do that. Thank you for all the people that serve and continue to serve in this community. Bless us and guide us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of proclamations. This is Building Safety Month, so I'm going to read this proclamation real quick. Whereas our city is committed to recognizing our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professional laborers, and others in the construction industry, who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to keep America great. And whereas Building Codes Save Lives, the theme for Building Safety Month 2018, encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, and new technologies in the construction industry. Building Safety Month 2018 encourages appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure that the places we live in, learn, work, worship, and play are safe, and recognizes that countless lives have been saved due to the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Ussery, Mayor for the City of Republic and the State of Missouri, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2018 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participating in Building Safety Month activities. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of the City of Republic this 15th day of May 2018. And we have Mr. Joseph, tell me how to say your name. Iliff here to accept this proclamation. Brian, how do you want to do it?
Let me try right there if you want to get close.
Thank you very much. And I have one more proclamation. This is for Republic City Employee Appreciation Week. I'm not going to present this one to anyone because it should go to all of the employees at the City of Republic. I have signed about 300 of them, so they'll be in every building where our employees can see them. So, whereas Republic City employees are committed to public service and perform their jobs with professionalism, compassion, dedication, and pride, and whereas public service is a noble calling involving a wide variety of challenging and rewarding professions, including providing vital family, health, and educational services, maintaining public safety, improving transportation, protecting our environment, and performing management activities, which are essential to the efficient and effective operation of our city. And whereas Republic City Employee Appreciation Week strives to inform our citizens about the quality of our people, their commitment to high ethical standards, and the value of the services they perform, to increase the satisfaction of those who are being served, and whereas may this commemoration provide an opportunity for all citizens of our community to pay tribute to the profession and spirit of public service, and to express our deep appreciation for the many contributions Republic City employees make to our daily lives. Now, therefore, I, Jeff Ussery, Mayor for the City of Republic and the State of Missouri, do hereby proclaim May 14th through May 18th, 2018, as Republic City Employee Appreciation Week. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of the City of Republic this 15th day of May, AD 2018. And at the bottom it says what we have here is our values will define who we are, and how we will accomplish our mission and vision. So if we could give all of our city employees a big round of applause. We have, the city's grown tremendously. We've faced a lot of challenges, and they have hit them head on and done a great job and helped the quality of life improve for all of us in the city of Republic. So at this point, I'd like to open up citizen participation. Anyone who would like to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes. Anyone who wish to speak to anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, citizen participation is closed. I need a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. On the boards, commission, committee schedules of note, city council meetings. The next one will be June 5th, 2018, followed by June 19th, 2018. Moving on to old business and tabled items, I need a motion and a second for the second reading of bill number 18-23.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 8-0. Ms. Brenda?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, approving the final development plan of the Frisco Square Village Plan Development District and the preliminary plat for Stage 1.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second for final passage of bill number 18-23.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Tyson.
For the sake of being brief, I won't go over any of the details about the development unless anyone on council desires for me to do that or has any specific questions. Instead, I want to focus on an update based on some discussion that occurred at the last council meeting surrounding the issue of the timing of Miller Road improvements. If you recall, staff's recommendation was that the Miller Road improvements not be allowed to be deferred until the development of the last phase. And if you recall, staff's opinion on that is that there is a degree of risk in doing that, in that if you defer all of the expensive improvements to the last phase, it's an increased probability that those improvements do not occur because you're putting all of that financial burden on a smaller scale of or size of property, as well as kicking that can further down the road in time. And so in our experience, and the city has seen some developments where that has not worked out and those improvements remain undone, not completed, and then it's left to the community to have to come in and do those improvements after the fact. So in order to avoid that, staff's recommendation was that Miller Road the timing of the Miller Road improvements would be moved up into the schedule. Ideally, it would be secure, either built earlier on or secured financially proportionately as the development occurred. So as each phase was completed, it would be a proportion of those improvements, or the value of those improvements would be financially secured. The Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation was to go ahead and let phase 1 of the development proceed, and then make the decision about Miller Road at the time that they would want to come back with another phase after that. There are 3 remaining phases after phase 1, those totaling about approximately 20 acres in developable land altogether. The 2 5-acre phases and then 1 10-acre phase. The way that the development plan is written now, as it is presented to you, the Miller Road improvements would not be required to be done until the development of that 10-acre phase, which is the phase that is located in the northern westmost corner of the development. So given the discussion at the last meeting about the possibility of coordinating with the developer to come to some agreement on some proportional securing of those road improvements, we did reach out and try to coordinate an effort to try to come to some agreement on that. And the developer is here this evening. We were not able to come to an agreement on that, but they're here this evening if the council has any further questions about that. Staff recommendation, however, remains the same.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns from Mr. Tyson? From council? No. Mr. Cameron, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I mean, I believe that without some sort of form of financial consideration that's added to the lots, I don't see how this can move forward with us bearing the risk or the exposure long term. I think we've had a meeting last week similar to this with Republic Commons, where we're sitting there trying to figure out and strategize and negotiate how to finish that street. And I think that this is a difficult situation. I think that we provided a very palatable solution to that. I would even consider that the park that's considered in that solution, that we forego, I mean, I'd rather have the street than say that we need the park. And forgo the 5 acres of that, if they wanted to sell that property to create the street, because that's the piece that has the largest impact moving forward. So I don't see that as I see that as a potential for us or for them to consider, but to have no consideration to that idea, therefore we cannot recommend it, nor do I recommend we move forward with that, some sort of financial plan to finish that street. So, and that's not been discussed or considered.
Okay. And we normally don't do this on second reads, but on the first read, they didn't have an opportunity to speak, so the developer is here, and I'm gonna ask him to come to the podium, Mr. Mywell Mall. Did I say it right?
Close enough.
Close enough, okay.
So basically what we have is, first phase, we lowered the density down. We have the ability to go up to 11 units an acre. So we dropped that down to single family on advisement of council. So we're already losing probably 80 units right there. So what I thought we were doing, Tyson, and I guess I misunderstood when we said this, I thought we were going under planning and zoning's recommendation to defer this to our next phase when we bring it in. That's what I thought we were doing today.
P&Z's recommendation that is still the recommendation from the
Okay, and that's what we would like to do, is to get through this first phase, which we have already committed to a park, which is $200,000. So that's roughly around, I don't know, $4,000 per unit added on to already infrastructure, everything else, you know, that we can do. The other phases, we would like to up the density, and that way, you know, if we get, you know, we have, I think, 15 acres, so possibly 150 units compared to 46. It makes sense. I mean, there's, you know, $3,000 per unit, which is palatable to any developer. You can do that. You know, there's a $300,000 road out there to take care of. So these first 46, we're already heavily invested into this thing. So it already almost doesn't make sense to do it now, even with the park addition to it, $200,000 added to it. So if we could get through first phase and then come to an agreement after we bring in our next development plan, then we can kind of hash something out. But with these 46, it barely makes sense to go forward as it is. So.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Tyson? Could we,
I guess I could have been clear about the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. They recommended approval on the condition that there would be no further phases beyond phase 1 approved without some sort of plan for Miller Road. That was Planning and Zoning Commission's actual motion to approve, just what Joey described, is that phase 1 would be allowed to proceed, but no further phases would be approved until an appropriate plan to secure Miller Road was approved at that time. So that's Planning and Zoning's recommendation. Again, that differs slightly from the staff recommendation, which is to try to secure this thing proportionately, including phase 1.
okay, questions? Mr. Jones?
Do we have are there any estimates on costs for Miller Road improvement, what that would be?
300,000.
300,000, so we have a $200,000 park and a $300,000 road improvement. Okay, that's what I need to know.
Any other questions, comments? Have our developer, Mr. Tyson or Mr. Cameron here.
I have one question.
Mr. Wilson?
What you said, was that putting writing? Because I never noticed it in any of the paperwork I saw.
Is what in writing?
Planning and Zoning's recommendation to start to do phase 1 and then continue, before they can continue to any other phases, that the road would have to be.
Well, it'll be in the record of the Zoning Commission's minutes. Scott, did that make it into the actual text of the ordinance?
I have those on my desk if you want to see them, Eric.
What I read, it wasn't in there.
In the ordinance itself, in the last where is clause, that's where I put in there what planning and zoning's recommendation was. If council wants to move forward with some type of amendment to the final development plan, council can obviously make that motion here tonight to amend that if they wanted to. final development plan, though, the way our code section is written, if there's any changes to a final development plan, it has to be agreed to not only by the council, but also by the developer also. So we just can't unilaterally impose a condition on them in the final development plan. It has to be a combination of both of us.
Right.
Mr. Jones.
You'd stated that let me make sure I've got this straight, the park, $200,000 park adds about $4,000 per unit, is that correct?
Correct, which we're already committed to. I mean, we don't know what, we're already committed to the park once we do this first phase. I mean, we have a time stamp on the park and a date to get it handed over.
Or potentially, if that was deferred to street improvements, it would add $6,000 to each unit.
Right, I mean, yes.
Is that an option for you?
I mean, honestly, right now, the park's not really an option. We would like to go ahead and move forward with another phase to try to take care of the park. But, I mean, we're obviously, if you can do, our plan was to not have anything on first phase, second phase take care of the park, third phase take care of the road, which you're talking 5 acres, so you're talking, could be 50 units spread over $200,000. Second phase, 110 units spread over $300,000. All of that is feasible. If we pack it into the front end, it's not. None of it is possible, so, I mean.
Was your question, is it to forego?
My question is not that, it's a consideration. It's a consideration that Mr. Cameron brought up. And so I was just doing the math. It's pretty easy. Probably everyone got pretty quick than me, but just wanted to see what kind of an impact that would have on the developer if that was the change of scope. It was moved with the road improvement instead of the park.
That would be something we'd have to discuss further than standing here.
We're gonna have to move forward with the bill, so.
Just briefly, I also want to tell council from a legal perspective, if we go through and approve the final development plan tonight and leave the plating issue for a possible recommendation later for Miller Road, I think that puts the city into jeopardy. Plating is an administrative function. If they meet the requirements that are set for the plating, the council has to approve that. So us deferring it on a plating basis and not having it in the final development plan, I think puts the city in a liability issue for Miller Road going forward.
Well, I haven't, go ahead.
Essentially, this is where we decide whether the street's done. You don't move on down to the next one. I just don't think there's a path forward that allows us not to address it here in the first reading.
Because,
So,
yeah, this is the final
or I
development
mean,
plan.
not the reading, the last reading of it.
Yeah.
This is our last control of that site.
Other than that, it's just a plating issue, and plating is an administrative function. As long as they meet whatever requirements are required by statute, the council pretty much has to approve it. So there's some concern going forward when we're just dealing with a plat, a second, third, or fourth plat, whether or not we could actually require them to do Miller Road in the future if we approve it as it is now.
So when it's set, what are you saying? We have to vote for it positive tonight or negative?
Not saying that at all.
No, there's many different options. There's voting, there's tabling, there's sending it back to P and Z. There's quite a few options. I just want to let council know that if they do vote to approve it tonight and then base it upon the fact that they're going to do Miller Road as a condition of further plating approval, I don't believe council is going to be able to hold their feet to the fire on that situation because the plating is purely an administrative function. And it's not going to be in the final development plan.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Cameron.
Gary, the best example I can provide would be the one we did with Valley Trails where it was already zoned. So there was really no provision that allowed those developers to come to the city till they changed it to a PDD. So it could have been built whatever it was already. Once you approve the zone or this zoning as it is or this development, it's an administrative function. So basically staff has the review and there's really nothing we could do to stop it other than saying, it would not come back to council for consideration or even discussion, so you may still end up in not having the street because they still have the zoning. There'd be no reason for us to deny their development if it meets the zoning, other than that street agreement. But I also believe, if I'm understanding correctly, in that development, the street was required as part of the development, which is why we're here, is that's part of a contractual basis they have with the people they bought the property from. So I think that we're trying to find a win-win, and I do believe that forgoing the park would be a palatable option. If that's $200,000 expense to the developer versus $300,000, we're talking about $100,000 difference that's spread across the property value. So, but again, we offered the opportunity of somewhere around $3,000 a lot with each lot sale. And if we can't get to that point, we could either table it, send it back to planning and zoning for those considerations, or vote it down.
Well, just to be clear, because there's a deadline here, the developer, the applicant's gonna have to agree to the tabling.
Correct. We have 30 days to take action on it or it's a denial. However, if the developer agrees to allow us to table it, if they want more time to try to work something out, then we can continue with this process. Otherwise, tabling it without their approval is going to basically be a denial of this application.
We'd rather send it back to, table or P and Z, send it back to P and Z.
Okay, so we have a request from the developer for a table so that we can get this verbiage worked out or whatever it is that we need to work out. Is there a motion to table this item?
I motion to.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 8-0, will be tabled and will be remanded back to planning and zoning. Is that correct?
That's what council, we can table it and keep it here, or we can send it back to planning and zoning for them to discuss the issue some more. Those are basically the two options that the council have, or they can vote on it as it is today, or offer an amendment. So there's many different options, but if we want to send it back to planning and zoning, then we need to vote, then the council should vote to send it back to planning and zoning, or tabling it, we'll keep it here with us.
Is that the developer's purview, planning and zoning? The other side of that is if we've tabled this item, then that gives you an opportunity to discuss with staff. It doesn't go back to planning and zoning. And then if there's some changes to be made to this bill, then it comes back to the council as it would be amended with explanation as how it was amended, rather than going back to planning and zoning.
Okay, then I guess we leave it here.
So then we've tabled it, we've taken a vote, and that's where we'll stay. So off the next meeting, it will be back on the agenda. We'll take it off the table at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Perfect.
Sorry that was muddy or clear as mud, but
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
On to new business. Need a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 18-24.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 8-0. And before we move on to Ms. Haynes, as if the last one wasn't enough, we do have a motion to amend this bill. Every so often, the bill comes before council before planning and zoning was able to get their direction to us. So that bill, we have planning and zoning's approval at this point, and we would ask for a motion to amend bill number 1824 by inserting whereas the planning and zoning commission by a vote of 5-0 did recommend to approve such application for vacation for the easements. Do I have a
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
John, Mr. Jones, the reason for that is because it wasn't included in this verbiage.
Okay. Is that typical verbiage in ordinance?
What happened is, this is an unusual circumstance when we had a planning and zoning meeting yesterday and a city council meeting today. Our packets are prepared the Thursday before. So we could not know what the vote was going to be at planning and zoning in the future. That's why the verbiage is already there. There's just blanks there. So we can fill in the blanks once we knew what planning and zoning's vote was going to be.
So we just need to amend the bill. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion to amend carries 8-0, and now Ms. Haynes. I'm sorry, we need to read the bill. This is getting confusing.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, vacating a permanent drainage easement and temporary construction easement to facilitate drainage improvements on a portion of lots 9, 10, 11, and 12 of the final plat of Miller Crossing.
Good evening. The City of Republic's Public Works Department is requesting the easement vacation of the 2 easements located on the subject properties within the Miller Crossing subdivision. A permanent drainage easement, also a temporary construction easement. The original easements were granted to the city by CDGW, who's the owner of those 4 subject lots, to facilitate stormwater improvements. The easement was granted in August of 2017 under the provisions of Section 120.140 of the City Code.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns from council?
And why are they wanting to do that?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Cameron?
So what the details behind this are is, this was a situation where the city took over an easement or requested an easement, which should have been the responsibility of the private property owner. So this is a situation where in some time past, probably 15 or 16, I'm not really sure, we took over an easement where, in our opinion, that is not something the staff should have been doing on private property when the developer should have, on those properties, we were in their backyards cleaning up drainage. That should have been the responsibility of the person that created the development. So we're giving back the issue back to where it belongs rather than the taxpayers paying to fix drainage. And so we have discussed that with the property owner. We did some work, but to comply with the agreement that was made with previous staff, but this is not an easement that the city should be having or maintaining in any way, because there's no utility back there that belongs to the citizens. So it was never ours to begin with, and I believe it's just cleaning up a process that we should not be involved in. And I appreciate Andrew for at least honoring a commitment that was made before, but also taking the steps to try to make it clear, try to serve the community and serve the citizen, and try to work with it. But I don't believe the citizens should be paying, and he was trying to protect those funds, and I appreciate that. So that's what this is all about.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, remember this is the first read. Please get with Ms. Haynes in the meantime, and Mr. Cameron if you do have any questions. Moving on, I need a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 18-25.
Motion. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0, Ms. Brenda.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to enter into a development agreement with Garden 2 LLC for water line public improvements to the Garden Business Park.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening. This ordinance would allow us to go out to the new facility in Garden Business Park across from ROI and construct their water service, along with continuing along would be the east property line to loop our system. And what that does for us, 1, strengthens our water service, and 2, prepares us for the future developments in that area. They're granting us the easement to construct that line. We're installing their portion, what would be their portion anyway, at our cost. And of course, they'll pay our labor and our materials for that installation, and then we will put the bill for the rest of it.
Okay. Any questions, comments, or concerns from Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Cameron.
This again is another one of those partnerships we're doing with the development community where there's a number of them on here tonight. I appreciate that we're able to work and think outside the box. But looping that system has significant benefit to us. I think that's a practice that we've not done as well. So creating these loops also adds and continues to expand. But while we're in there, we're actually saving the developer money on the development side as well with their cost of installing the water system. And so I think it's, again, a way for them to help assist money and drive development in the community. So I appreciate the work by staff to get this done and the timeline to get it done. Because I think this is a very aggressive timeline. We have to be done by somewhere around June 30th.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns from council?
What does looping mean? I think I know what it means.
I'm sorry, good question. So basically, when you run a line down a street, and say there's a cul-de-sac, and it just stops there, that's considered a dead-end main as well. So what you like to do is find another area where another main is running, connect the dots of that so that it's looped into the rest of the water system. Otherwise, you have a line that sits there and you get stagnant water at the end of it. Makes for bad water quality and water pressure. So by tying in, say if it was in 2 streets running parallel in a block, you just ran through someone's backyard, that would be considered looping them, tying them together.
best practice?
Best practice, by far. It's a practice that should be a standard operating procedure for the city, will be a standard operating procedure for the city moving forward, because it may cost some money up front, which we're paying, but for $7,000, we're gonna loop a system, versus saying, okay, developer, you should bear the cost of looping when we get the benefit. And so we're partnering to do that, but it also extends our water system, provides better water quality, which is the other issue that's involved. So best practice by far.
And I should have said, their obligation's about 16,000 and ours will be about 7.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, this first read. If you have any questions between now and then, please get Mr. Nelson or Mr. Cameron. Thank you, sir. Are you here for the next one as well?
I am.
Okay. A motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 1826.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0, Ms. Brenda.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to enter into a development agreement with Valley Park Estates, LC, for the extension of approximately 2,600 linear feet of water services for the development of valley trails.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Okay, so this is for phase 1 of the trails at Valley Park. It's basically all the service line for those initial lots. We estimate this project to be about $100,000, and the developer wishes to reimburse us on a per lot sale basis. What we found is that the city can do it much cheaper. It saves them upfront cost and encourages faster development.
Any questions, comments, or concerns from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Cameron?
So this again is not a standard operating or process that would be done. However, the idea of driving the higher end homes, of the idea of getting a different level of housing started in the city is what's driving us to partner on this development. So part of the deal in the front end, we were talking about the PDD, we addressed the PDD ordinance. And at the same time, we talked about partnering on the water system to help create these opportunities. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this. Again, it's not something I anticipate on residential. It will be a long-term process, but to try to create more opportunities for the higher-end homes that we need to create more diversity in what's being built. That's part of the reason why this one, we talked about partnering on that development. So I don't see us doing this on a lot of residential development. But I think we have the right to look at development to say, hey, if we need a different diversity mix, we can do that if it's multifamily or if it's starter homes. But right now, the need in the city was more of those higher end. So it's a case-by-case basis. I don't want to just say it's only those type of homes. But right now, that's what's desperately needed in our market. So that's why we're asking for it. Thank you.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, first read. If you have any questions, please get Mr. Nelson or Mr. Cameron. In the meantime, for the next meeting, Mr. Nelson, you can stand for this one as well.
I am.
Okay, I need a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 18-27.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0, Ms. Brenda.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to enter into a development agreement with Drury Properties, Inc. for public improvements to the Trogdon Industrial Park.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
And we actually have some displays that were brought in by the developer tonight. You can see, let's see, this is a little bit bigger one. I mean, if you guys want to talk about it.
I will.
Can you bring that around to the front?
I will. So what this is, I'm gonna bring this around. Sorry that nobody's gonna get to see it, but I'm gonna show you what this is. So, for several months, almost a year, probably a year and a half, Mr. Drury, Mitch, I'd like to introduce you to him after we're done and make introductions. But this is the end of Carnahan Street right here. So, I'm sorry, I don't remember. That was a utility. What was the rental company? Remember? Thank you, Blue Line Rental, which is closed. But this is that dead end street. This is Heart of America, Brookline Industrial Park. What Mr. Drury has is 100 acres right here that's basically sat there for 11 years. There's been, I wouldn't say no movement, but right now, obviously, there's nothing been developed there. So Brookline Development is at capacity. So basically it's built out. So what this opportunity is for us, again, talking with Mr. Drury, is for the city to build the first 1,100 feet. And basically it creates these different 4.5 acre lot, 5 acre lot. This is conceptual, by the way, so there's really right now, it's just like it is with Garden Business Park. These are not platted. So basically this is a conceptual Mr. Drury put together for a marketing campaign or marketing packet that he could distribute to different vendors. So right now, for example, there was nothing moving on this. Once this started, some of this discussion, there is a potential buyer, there's interest in this lot and basically buying this one. So basically it creates more opportunity to start moving these, because again, this property over here, which is Watson Metal Master, Heart of America, pretty much there might be one or two lots, Bob, there might be one. It's all sold, okay. So basically, it's kind of the what's next phase. So to help spur this is to build this first 1,100 feet to get it started, to create momentum in that area, kind of like we did with Garden Business Park with ROI. So once ROI started, now we got another building. We're looking at 2 more to going into that same thing. It's kind of the next step as to where we go. There will have to be improvements to Farm Road 144. That's something we're going to have to discuss with Greene County. We have discussed this. I go all the way back to late 2016, about when time I arrived. We met with Greene County at King's office and with a number of officials talking about Farm Road 144 as well. But what this is in this particular development is what Mr. Drury has agreed to do from just basically because of cash flow issues for us as well. He's agreed that as we build and buy material, he'll reimburse us as we build this street versus waiting for a lot to sell. So we're being paid back as we build the street, but he's holding on to a retainage that provides him some assurance that that we're not going to stop about 100 feet and say, oh, had a bad day, and all of a sudden the equipment breaks down. And so basically, there's some level for him to have some assurance that we get that built. What we get out of that is more development opportunities and more lot availability in this 5 acre tract area. And what I provided you tonight is a spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet that Justin Quinn with the Springfield Chamber, he and I work closely with staff. What those are those are starts. Those are starts or requests that have come in over the, since 2015 from potential investors or builders or developers looking to relocate into Southwest Missouri. So basically, you'll see the variables of different lot needs and different things that people are looking for, and the availability in the market is just not that strong. So they're looking for more of these lots. I don't think we can't get them built fast enough, quite frankly. And so there's a lot of interest, obviously, in Republic, and so there's definitely a lot of interest in us creating more of these type of lots. Therefore, that's why we're partnering again, or asking to partner. And this does go back to our previous resolution where we asked for permission or authorization to proceed with some negotiations with Mr. Drury. And I believe this is the end product that we put together for you. So we're recommending approval for this one as well. Yourself.
So we had a lot of success with Garden Business Park. Is there anything with this agreement that's different than that one that is negative towards the city?
No, not really, because this one, we've talked about this for several months, but the challenge is that it's contingent upon other lots selling in Garden. So what Mr. Drury's doing on this one is he's paying the upfront cost as we build. So in this agreement, it's actually different from even the one we just did, but that's on water. On a street provision, what this particularly does is when they buy material, Mr. Drury is consultant. They would look at it, review the bids. Once they come to council, council reviews the bids. We order the material. We get the invoice. What we do at that stage is on the 15th of every month, we send that invoice in to Mr. Drury, and in 15 days we're paid back before we even put anything in the ground. So we're actually having our accounts replenished. So I don't see anything in that provides us, other than the retainage side that we did not provide in the last agreement, but that provides assurance to the developer that we finished the job, and I think that was a fair trade-off rather than saying we'll go and argue the case. I think it all provides us an opportunity to say we'll finish it and he can hold on to some money until we're done. And those are public funds, so we have to finish our work. But I don't see anything in there that would be negative.
You'd like to?
I think it's important to point out that retainage is just for, if that gets paid out, immediately upon completion of the job. So you're only talking, what, are you expecting 2 to 3 months construction time, David?
I'm looking at Andrew. Yeah. But even the retainage is not, like, as Mr. Drury explained, it's not something we're waiting 6 or 8 months to receive back. It's, once we all agree that we're finished or we've completed the work. There will be an amendment, I believe, that we have to come back with once the cost estimates are done. Is that correct? So we'll be, one of the things that we have to get through this step and start working on the actual cost, an actual estimate. We have estimates, but the engineer drawings and things, this initiates the drawing phase, and then we can kind of get a better tie down on what the estimates are going to be. There's a lot of trash out there that's going to have to be hauled off. I mean, dirt, meaning bad dirt.
So there's no negative impact to the taxpayer?
Sorry, did I go a long way to just say no?
Well, I wasn't saying it that way. I'm just saying that.
I just try to, yes, I believe that we've done a very good job. I think between Scott and Mr. Drury's counsel, I think we've worked on this quite a bit and arrived at a pretty good win-win for both parties. But yes, in that agreement, the taxpayers' funds are protected.
And I'll say for all 3 of these developments that projects like these are something that the staff takes a lot of pride in. So what you get in turn is a project for them to participate in, to see their work, you know, positively impact the city as far as growth. So it's a good deal.
Anything else from council? Okay, seeing nothing else, first read. If you have any questions, please get with Mr. Nelson or Mr. Cameron in the meantime. We have no resolutions. On to the finance report. Ms. Payne.
Good evening, everyone. I'm standing in for Debbie Parks, the Finance Director, to provide an update from the Finance Department and to present the April financial report. Upcoming events, the Finance Department is gearing up for Tyler implementation. So they will be here at the end of May, so the next 2 weeks. The first week in June and the first week in July. During this time, they will be helping us with implementation, training, helping us design forms and setting up on our computers. June 5th, we'll have the draft of the audit that will go out to council members so that you have time to review it before John Cummings with KPM will be here on June 18th to present the audit report. June 20th, Debbie Parks, the Finance Director, will file the EMA reports that are due. June 28th, the final audit report will be submitted to the State Auditor by the June 28th deadline. And in July, the Finance Department will be bringing the mid-year budget amendment to Council to capture any changes to the budget. Now into the financial update. You have these packets in front of you. So the first section within this packet should be the sales tax. And the sales tax numbers are still good and holding steady, with the year-to-date increase over 2017 being around 6.30%. And the next section is the cash report. A couple parts to touch on is the unrestricted cash for general fund, which is around 2.1 million. The unrestricted cash for the capital improvement sales tax fund is at 277,862. I'm rounding. And the city is starting projects with this capital improvement sales tax, so they just finished the storm sirens, and that will reflect on the May financials report. The next section is going over the budget versus actual report. Sorry, I'm flying through this.
It's okay.
So, optimal percentage at the end of April should be 33.3%. So you'll see beginning there is Fund 10, so that's the general fund. And the general fund revenues as a whole were around 41.3%. Expenditures for the general fund landed 32% overall. So we're good there. The water fund, which is Fund 20, the revenues were 28.8%. Expenditures landed around 30.51%. The wastewater fund, which is Fund 25, the revenues were 31.13%. Expenditures landed at 29.23%. And then the street fund revenues were 19.26%. expenditures 17.1%, and the revenues for that, we are still, we haven't started some of the projects where we will be receiving money for grants. So that's why you might notice that that line is, that fund is a little bit less than the 33.3% at this point. That will be starting up in the summer months. Stormwater fund, which is 42. The revenues are 83.91%. Expenditures landing at 0.18%. The fire sales tax fund, which is Fund 45. The revenues were 33.1%, expenditures only at 1.04%. And the Parks and Recreation budget, Fund 50. Revenues were 35.40%, expenditures 33%. And we are just now getting into the summer months, so that will be increasing with the revenues. And capital sales tax fund, the revenues were at $206,966.93, which was 32.9%, and expenditures were $6,707, and that's 1.08%. So all expenses are on or below budget in every fund, as you can see in your packets. Do you have any questions?
Okay, any questions or comments from council? And it's also important to note that I think in June and July, we will be operating with Summit and Tyler, is that right?
Yes.
So we won't have complete financial.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. So yes, we will be operational in both.
Okay.
So.
Using the old one and the new one at the same time.
Yep.
Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, motion is second to approve the financial report.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Ms. Payne. Reports from staff, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Megan, I thought you did an outstanding job. So, Debbie's not here tonight, and what I love about where we're at as an organization is she's at her daughter's kindergarten graduation. Megan agreed to step up and do the financial report, so Debbie could do that, and I just think that speaks volumes to where we're at. Make sure that what we have outside the job sometimes is a priority of what's going on tonight. So I appreciate the work, and I appreciate you did a great job. So you didn't go too fast. You did it just right. This Friday is the Employee Appreciation Luncheon. If you're available, I know everybody has work during the day, things of that nature. If you can't make it, but hey, this Friday we're having a luncheon for all the staff out at the park, and so providing lunch, I guess, as long as the weather permits. I appreciate the staff putting that together. But I cannot say enough about the staff and what they're doing and the work that, and the changes that we've made and the adjustments we've made, the direction that we're going. And I appreciate the work every day that you put in, and I look forward to celebrating that. I know we're probably a week behind on Employee Appreciation Week, but I look forward to celebrating with our staff, and I just appreciate the work what you're doing every day, and all the development agreements and things that we're sitting around putting together. And Scott, for your work, getting to know how we do things and actually finding ways to help us and make it easier, and understanding and making yourself part of the process. It's really, truly helped driving where we're going, so I appreciate the work there. This week is Chief Lawton's last week with the city. He's not here tonight, but what I'd like to do is at least recognize what he's brought to the city, his interaction with the community and the things that he's made better, and getting out and people seeing him and the shop with the hero and the things that he's done. And Mike's been a very active chief out and about the community, and I just want to thank him for his service. But I also want to recognize Brian Sells, the interim chief of police. Thank you for your willingness to step up and serve. And so I look forward to working with you and with the rest of the staff as we help move forward in the future with the police department and our community. But congratulations, and I look forward to working with you. And really, other than that, I want to say thank you for this council and the mayor, the support to allow us to work with the development community to create different ways and ideas that we can advance the community, because I think that you've got to use a different approach. I think we've done that. I think we've adjusted that in the last almost 2 years, and I really appreciate your willingness to do that. I think it's paying dividends, as you can see by the growth and development of the community, and I think it's just the best is truly yet to come. And I believe there's a lot of favor upon doing that, and I appreciate what you've allowed us to do and the trust that you bestowed upon myself and this team to get it done. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to talk just real quickly about, briefly touch on a couple of things that David spoke about, and that's with working with the development community. It was nice to see tonight that I think in a lot of times councils get to a point where they get to an obstacle with the development and it's just either yes or no. And that's, you know, a question Mr. Wilson was asking. So is this just a yes or no right now? And I think it's so good to see a government working with the developer to say, well, we'll table this, we'll hold off, let's try to get this right, and so we can move forward for the benefit. We don't want to build a street and leave the citizens holding the bag. That's not, because we're not the ones that are developing that property. So it's not right for the taxpayers to fund that street. We all know it, and I think they know it too. That's why they're willing to. But it was just good communication. It probably seemed completely muddy, felt that way, but we got to the end of it. I also would like to thank Chief Lawton for his service to our city. We have a certificate for him here that he's not here tonight, so I couldn't give it to him. So we'll make sure he gets that. And then congratulate Mr. Sells on his interim chief position. I've known Brian for, I think you've worked at the police department for 22 years. You probably don't like saying that, but and I've known him for about 20 of those. So I think we're in good hands there. And I would like to mention that it's National Peace Officers Memorial Week. So this is a time when we don't get to, but we can reflect on those who served us and gave their life doing so. I was a police officer for many years and lost a good friend in the line of duty, and I think about him every day. So it's just a good time to reflect on those people that gave everything to serve us. So with that, I'll move on to council reports. Mr. Dykeman.
Well, this, again, of course, Chief Lawton has done a lot for the city and helped make people aware that we have a police department that's willing to work with them. And he's going to be missed, but welcome Mr. Sells as a interim, taking the job, because it's going to be hard. But just overall, our city, I mean, today I was at the rec center and there was a new girl sitting at the front desk, and I stopped and I introduced myself and told her how much I appreciated, their work. And I think that does good. I mean, because we have a wonderful staff and everybody works for the betterment of our city.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Russell.
I had the opportunity to go to a huddle not too long ago. And for those of you that have been, you kind of know what it is, but for those of you that haven't, it's a neat thing to see the positive energy that goes on with the city employees and how invested they are. And I like learning. I like going and learning about the Parks and Rec and seeing the future hopes and dreams. I like that, and I like the enthusiasm, and I'm proud to be a part of this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Grant.
Just going to echo what you said about Chief Lawton. And congratulations, Mr. Sells, which is kind of funny to say. So I've known Brian for a long time also, so I'm really, really excited for you. Looking forward to the employee lunch. I went last year, and it was a great time, and I really enjoyed getting to have just some one-on-one contact with everybody there. So it was a really good time. Looking forward to that. And I've had a ton of compliments on the street signs. Everybody is super excited to see that orange and black on those street signs. So great job, everybody that's putting that together. It looks really great. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin.
Just like to thank Chief Lawton truly for everything he did for Republic. It was very refreshing to see him out in the public and see a lot of the different things that he did. And congratulations, Mr. Sells. We're looking forward to working with you in the future. I'll kind of echo the same on the huddle. Went to the huddle last week, and it's always fun to see everybody working and see what everybody is working on specifically and learning as well. Appreciate that. Looking forward to the employee appreciation picnic this weekend, or Friday. As long as everything works out, I'll be there for sure. So looking forward. I heard there was going to be games, and so that sounds like fun.
You weren't supposed to say that one.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention was this month is also National Military Appreciation Month. A lot of different things to appreciate this month for sure, between National Peace Week, Million Codes, and all of our veterans. And so I'm very thankful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Self?
Just a lot of echoing of what others have said. Thank you, Mr. Sells, for stepping into that position. Greatly appreciative of that. You know, we're looking here at 3 agreements on our agenda tonight, and you know, I remember when I first started, I don't know if there was one agreement for months, and so this is a sign that it is a new day. The city is more willing to work with developers in the community than we've ever been in the past, and anyone and every staff person who has something to do with it, whether it's Scott, Brenda, David, or Andrew, or Jared, or Garrett, or you know, Karen, all of you all, to have a piece in that. It is it's a shift, and it's a shift that is going to be. There's rewards down the road for a lot of people, whether it's the developer, the person that lives here in the community, or someone that's looking to move to the community. I always talk about being the end product, and you know, what does that look like, and it takes all those puzzle pieces to get that picture of what that's going to be. And just seeing these 3 agreements here, it speaks volumes as to the city that I want to be a part of. So,
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilson?
Well, pretty much echo what other people have said. Plus, I want to thank the police department and the fire department for the work they do. In my eyes, they are greatly appreciated.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones?
In honor of Tree Pollen Month here in the Ozarks and its effect on my body, I defer my time to Mr.
Okay, Mr. Shears.
Well, I could say echo, but I'll go ditto. All right, it's hard to say something that's really different than the last one here. We graduated 301 Sunday, seniors from Republic High School. But next year we're probably approaching more like 360. So when you get that type of growth in a school system, there's probably a reason. People are wanting to move to this area. And you get a good school system and a city that's progressive and growing the way we are. I think you haven't seen anything yet as far as what's going to happen in this area. It's really a great area to live in and be a part of. So,
absolutely.
That's it.
All right. Thank you, sir. With that, we do not have an executive session tonight. So I'll ask if there's a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 8-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
No, I just